Hello everybody, I'm back with some more everyday edit information. This time we're talking about fabrics, and I'm going to talk through the samples that we've made and also some of the fabrics that we've used, and I've got some scraps stuck to me already. I've got on the table here, a little bit unceremoniously, a lot of the fabrics and scraps from all these samples that we've been making for the last few months. So when you start out thinking about making an ebook, it's a little bit overwhelming, and I had a big old spreadsheet, because I love a spreadsheet, of all the samples that ideally I wanted to make and all the different sort of colours I was looking at. So we start off thinking, okay, who are we going to get to model? We get the models, we know they're free on the day, we get their measurements, then we think, okay, what do these people like to wear? So I like to think, what do they like to wear? What do I see them on Instagram wearing? What do they feel comfortable in? That's also going to fit in with the vibe that I want for this ebook and for this collection of patterns. So I really like to take that into consideration when thinking of fabrics and thinking of colours. And I wrote all this down in this enormously overwhelming spreadsheet, and panicked a little bit at thinking of sewing 20 samples, and decided to get in touch with some of our small business friends. And I got in touch with Minerva, who you will probably have heard of. Minerva are what seemingly look like a very big fabric shop, but they are a sort of family run business, and asked them if maybe they could help us out with a few fabrics. Wouldn't that be lovely? Eases the burden on us a little bit, and we get to choose something nice and talk about our small business friends, our fabric friends. And lo and behold, Vicky from Minerva came back and said, what do you want? You can have anything. And the way my heart leapt, the speed at which I went on that website to see what they had, was incredible. So we are so indebted, we are incredibly grateful to Minerva and the whole Minerva team for letting us use their fabrics. And we used fabrics from two ranges, so from their core range, so if you go on their website you'll see they have a Minerva core range and they have a print on design range, which is, if I can remember my facts, it's something like there's 1700 designs, and I want to say between 100 and 200 base cloths that you can get those printed on. So we really just had like the full pick. It was so amazing. We're so grateful for them for their help. So all of these fabrics I will be talking about are from Minerva, but I'll be honest about using them, and there were some that didn't work and I had to ask for replacements, and I'll talk you through why that is and things like that as well. But overall, we were incredibly grateful for them. And the other people that helped us out as well is the lovely team at Pigeon Wishes, who gave us all the buttons for the samples as well, which complemented Minerva's fabric so beautifully. We really often use their buttons anyway, so it was just really nice to get in touch with them and have a little bit of them in the ebook too. So massive thanks to them, and you'll see all the photos and the links to their buttons as well. In fact, I say that now because I probably will forget exactly what these designs are called, or exactly what percentage of cotton to something else these fabric have in them now, but I'll make sure there's a list below of everything, so you've got the links to all the fabrics that we used. So gonna maybe start with, what am I gonna start with? Maybe these. So when I was thinking about Emily, I see Emily in quite a lot of pinks, in quite almost, the colour palette I have in my head for her says ice cream to me. It's pinks, it's sort of warm, soft colours. It's not necessarily your brown autumnal tones, but it's definitely jewel tones. And that is what I had for my vision, for the vision that is Emily in our photo shoot. And I wanted to pick for all of us mostly plains with a couple of key prints that would kind of bring everything together, as an example of how you kind of don't need too much print. If you want to use print, oh my goodness, go to town, but you don't always need that. You can just have a print that runs through a range and it brings everything together. And for Emily I chose this, which I'll test my knowledge, I think it's called Psychedelic Posies. So this is one of their Minerva's print on demand designs, which I think I'm holding upside down, but you can see the gist. This is it printed on a double Georgette, said it in a French way, a double Georgette. and this is what we used for Emily's Jacinta blouse. Worked really, really well. The thing that I really liked about using these prints on the print on demand service is that I could then have the same print put onto a different fabric base. So then in Emily's Shacket, I used it for a viscose twill for her pocket bags. And actually I think it was this viscose twill, which I've got some scraps of here, which I don't know if you can tell, but my goodness, the colour saturation on this viscose twill was astonishing. It is just gorgeous. And obviously with a print on demand, it's going to differ slightly. This is a good way to show you the sort of depth of the colour depending on what you're having it printed on. But this one, the viscose twill especially, I was very excited when I opened that parcel because it just looked so beautiful. And so I think I got a metre of the viscose twill and used it for the pocket bags in the Shacket and also in the trousers. And again, it's one of those things that not everyone sees, but you'll see. And if you know that it then matches your blouse, I mean, you're onto a winner, onto a winner. So yeah, that was double georgette and the viscose twill. And then for all the coats, actually, I've just got a scrap of Emily's here. We used a boiled wool. This is a gorgeous quality boiled wool. It's, again, the colour saturation was impressive. You can see, so we've got Lena's the green one. Emily was in this sort of pinky magenta. And then mine's the more autumnal brown as well. Such beautiful colours. It handled very, very well. It did a lot of those things that wool does that when you're sewing it, and it might feel like a bit clunky and a bit tricky at sometimes, and then you press it and let a bit of steam into it and wool just kind of goes into place. There was a particular point when I was sewing in the sleeves and the sleeve head, and in this fabric you do not have to gather that sleeve head because the wool just goes, okay, I'll go in there, that's fine. Do you want me to sit in that little curve? No problem. And then when I steamed it as well, it all just fell into place. Really easy to work with. I would say probably this is the thickest end of the fabrics that you're going to want to make the opal coat in, just simply because when you're dealing with a Revere collar, there's a lot of layers. You've got your collar, you've got your lapel, you've got facing, you've got a lot of things going on, so this is quite thick. And it's maybe, I would say, probably the thickest you want to go. All of these are made on a domestic machine, a nice good sewing machine, but it was that point when you start using the hand wheel instead of the foot because you're a little bit nervous about how chunky it is. But it works perfectly well. It's going to be hard wearing, I think. I think it's going to last, like, when you have a proper coat that you make well in good fabric, that's going to last so many years. For the insides, I chose Viscoses. So this is another example, actually, if I get mine, where the inside of my coat matches the trousers. So this is another of the viscose twill, and actually it's a good point to note on this one, on the viscose twill, and actually on, I'd say, the lighter weight printed fabrics, you're going to get this with absolutely any fabric that is printed rather than woven. That if you don't use the right needle type, or maybe don't use a sharp enough needle or a new needle, it might pull at a little strand in the fabric, and of course if it pulls that fabric out of place, that strand, then it interrupts the print, and it did do on this coat because it was the last step and I'd sewed an entire coat, so I imagine my needle was not in its tip-top condition, and just on the last little bit of the hem it has pulled a little bit. So just make sure, really careful with any printed fabric from anywhere, that you're using a really nice sharp needle and also a needle that's an appropriate weight for your fabric, and that will really help with that. So that, yes, was viscose twill for the lining, and then I also got this printed on cotton twill. So this cotton twill is what my Rosemary trousers here are made out of. It's also the same weight that Lena's Farley Shacket and Rosemary trousers are made out of as well. So this is, I want to say it's called organic cotton twill. Again, I'll pop it down below. Such a perfect trouser weight. It is, again, it feels like it's going to be so hard wearing. It's medium to heavyweight. it just feels like perfect trouser weight, if I'm honest. It's, I think, with printed fabrics, it's going to wear a little bit at the seams, but in a nice way. You know how when you have like old jeans that just look loved and worn in, I think it's going to have that vibe over time, but also again the colour saturation I really love, especially on this one's come out perfectly well, and I think I've got enough for some sort of bag. Oh, do you know what, that's some trouser legs that went wrong. I cut them before I'd altered the pattern like a fool. So I got some trouser legs there, but I think they will be enough for a bag. See, things don't always go smooth sailing. I have to say I did my worst ever mistake in sample sewing whilst making these up, in that when we get our foot patterns back from the grader who's put them into all of the sizes, then nothing's labelled, and they come, they come in how we produce them, 6 to 20, 18 to 30. I was sewing Emily's lovely coat here, and I knew that the size she needed was the 3rd line in. So everywhere I cut the 3rd line in, obviously no size labels or anywhere, but I've done this 12 million times, I know what I'm doing. It turns out I didn't know what I'm doing, because from the start I printed out the 6 to 20 range instead of the 18 to 30, and I was in fact making a size 10 to 12 instead of a 22, 24, like an idiot. And the whole time I was like, oh, it feels kind of, I think I just made Lena's, which is the full length, and Emily's was shorter, and I was sort of like thinking, oh, it's not as bulky as I thought it would feel because it's a lot of fabric. It's probably just because it's shorter. So, or you know, I've just got really strong, until I put it on a mannequin whilst I started the lining. So I've got an almost fully made coat, and as soon as I put it on the mannequin and saw it fitted a size 10 mannequin, I had to take a few steps back. But now it turns out that Alma, who it will fit perfectly, has got a half-made coat ready for her, and in this gorgeous pink, which will suit her very well. So anyway, that aside, I don't think any more major mistakes were made. Let me think about Farley. So Farley, the Shacket, as I said, Lena's was in this cotton twill. Mine was in a, do you know what, I'm going to get it because it's on my chair, because I've been wearing it. This is mine, which has been worn to death. So this is in a Needlecord. There we go. So it's a little bit lighter than Lena's. You can see probably from the photos, Lena's is quite structured. I love that like cropped, boxy, structured thing look, and I love that it gives you the kind of suit, the faux suit vibes as well. Mine is a lot more relaxed, casual. I chuck it on every day. This is another example when I've got a bit of viscose twill, so that matches my coat and matches my trousers. And it's just one of those little extra details. And of course these have got these lovely pigeon wishes buttons on. So Needlecord, perfect. Remember to hoover afterwards because it goes flipping everywhere, but lovely, lovely to wear. And then Emily's is in a canvas, so I think it's got a bit of stretch in it. It doesn't need stretch, this jacket, but it'll work really well in those stretch cottons that you can find really readily. So if something says it's got a tiny stretch percentage, for the jacket or the trousers, don't be put off by it. As long as it's a woven and it feels like one of those nice trouser weight fabrics, then it'll work really, really well. So I'm going to take this off because I'm a little bit warm. Talking about, maybe talk about my top. So Astrid is designed so it's nice and slim fitting, and it's designed so this wrap is not going anywhere. I think it is the most secure I've ever felt in a wrap top, but also it's still got a really nice neckline that I like. So it's got a nice shape, but also this isn't going anywhere. To get that, the pattern does half the work, but also the fabric needs to do half the work. So one of the fabrics I first asked Minerva for was one of these. This is a rib. So this was originally going to be Emily's bodysuit, and I got it for me as well in a rusty colour. Gorgeous fabric. So this is a rib jersey. I think it's 100% cotton, and there's no Lycra content in it. Because of that, and because I didn't think it through, when I put on this binding, it kind of fit everywhere else okay, but when I put on this binding there was no recovery to bring this top back in to keep it really nice and snug. So for this pattern, this fabric doesn't work. This fabric would be perfect for something that isn't relying on that recovery, so something looser fitting. I was thinking about making one of our Lucy dresses in it, or a holly jumper, or pyjamas as well. Some Imogen pyjamas would be lovely. So this one didn't work out well, but it is still a gorgeous fabric for a pattern that will work for it. What I asked for instead was, oh, this one in fact. So this is my bodysuit fabric. I wonder if it says on it. No, it doesn't. This is, I would say, one of the best cotton jerseys I have used in my life, and I have immediately ordered some in black to make a black version. It's just cotton jersey with a certain amount of Lycra content. Again, I'll pop that below, but the recovery is just unbelievable. The recovery, the colour saturation, the weight of it. Obviously this is slim fitting, so you might want something that kind of is a little bit heavier, is a little bit thicker, if that makes you more comfortable. But the weight of this is fantastic for Astrid. I would say it's fantastic for any sort of t-shirty sort of jersey thing that you need to make with good recovery. I think it's possibly the favourite fabric. Have I already said that? I might have said that. It's really good. I love it. So that one was a beauty. And in the end, I made all of the bodysuits and tops out of the same fabric in different colourways, because if you go on the Minerva website, they have, I think it's like 30 different colourways of it. So you got your pick. Okay, Astrid. And then I think we are, oh no, I haven't talked, okay, I've mixed it up a bit. I'll go for the table. So this is what I made my Jacinta blouse out of. This was a bit of a leap in what I was asking for, and Minerva were incredible and just said yes, and this is their silk. So this is the print on demand silk, and it is heavenly. It is just soft and sumptuous, and the drape is incredible. And I think I love that blouse. I love the pictures of it tucked into my other Rosemary trousers, and the way it just softly falls over the waistband is beautiful and gathers into the cuffs as well. There's a reason why people love silk, and there's a reason why silk's expensive, because it is just so beautiful. This is, not gonna lie, it's not a cheap fabric, but if you're making something special, it might be worth the investment because it's gorgeous. It's a little bit fiddly to sew with, or actually I would say it wasn't fiddly to sew with, it was fiddly to cut, just because it's so lightweight. But I'm a scissors person. If you're a rotary cutter person, you might find it easier than I did. So on to Clementine, the pinafore and dress. We have got 3 samples. They were in a denim, she says. Yes, a denim. This is quite a lightweight denim, so this was my pinafore. And I actually used the silk for my facings and for my pocket bags as well. It feels very sumptuous to put my hands in my pockets in my Clementine pinafore. This is absolutely perfect weight for the pinafore. It worked beautifully. The colour is going to go with everything I own and will also work sort of throughout the year as well. For Emily's version, we used a proper corduroy, so rather than a needle cord, a corduroy, quite a thick Wale, and that works perfectly for version 1, which kind of has more structure to it, and it's quite nice to hold that straight skirt nicely. And then I use that gorgeous Viscose twill for the pockets and the facings there as well. So this version 1, definitely works really, really well in something heavier. I think it would also work well in a wool pinafore. Oh, I'm thinking now. A wool pinafore with like a white shirt underneath, a white Amy shirt underneath, would be delightful. It is closed Clementine with an invisible zip, in the side seam, so you have to negotiate that. That's kind of your only gauge of what might be too heavy or too light for it. But yeah, with the corduroy, absolutely fine. I think a wool would be fine. I think a canvas would work. And we have put some notes sort of in our instruction booklet about what to do if your fabric is bulky as well around there, and how best to handle that. So there's ways to mitigate it if you want to use a heavier fabric, that's what I'm saying. If you want to use a lighter fabric, then you might want to for version 2. This is a Needlecord, and then obviously that will show off the gathered skirt a little bit more. The gathered skirt, I think possibly that design won't work for the heavier weights, so that in corduroy, those gathers wouldn't just be very neatly defined, they might just be a bit clunky, and it works for the slimmer skirt. But any lighter fabrics, and I've said before, Clementine is a layering piece, so there's ease built in, but that doesn't mean to say, because we've got these princess seams, you might be able to fit it a little bit more snugly, if that's a word, and use a lighter weight fabric as well. So if you wanted to transform this more into a kind of spring, early summer type dress, there's potential for that as well. And of course you've got this lovely little detail at the back. So haberdashery actually is a good thing to talk about. Not too much really, actually. Clementine, you've got a zip and you've got a little buckle thing at the back. Rosemary trousers, elastic and buttons if you're making version 1. Nothing on the coat. Buttons on the shacket. Buttons on the blouse. Nothing on the top. I think that's it. Pretty low on the haberdashery stakes, which I always find quite handy. Just got to find some gorgeous buttons like the ones we got. But that is a brief chat through the fabrics we've used. I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea, or maybe a starting point of what you can do with these patterns fabric wise. And maybe if you're thinking about your capsule wardrobe, you can maybe do what I've done and start thinking about the colours that you want. You can kind of see a little bit that this is Lena's section, these greens and yellows and charcoals. Emily's ice cream colours, as I described them in the middle. And then half of my samples aren't here because I've been wearing them so much, but I've gone in for the navies and the autumnals, the browns, which are just lovely. I love them. It is such a treat to have this as part of my job, is to make all these gorgeous things that I have loved designing and will continue to love wearing. So if there are any questions about fabrics and these patterns, then just pop them below, or give us an email as well. I think by now there should be some things popping up on Instagram, but remember to look out for the hashtags. There's SOI Everyday Edit for the whole ebook, and then there's also a hashtag per pattern as well. So it's just SOI, Opal coat, Farley Shacket, whatever the name of the pattern is, have a look there. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up or subscribe to our channel. A massive thanks, honestly, to Minerva and to Pigeon Wishes for helping us out with all of this. It is a mammoth task to put something like this together, and their help was so unbelievably well received. So do go check out their websites. I'm sure you'll know them already, but there is a wealth of gorgeous stuff on there. But otherwise, I will see you next time. Bye!